Welcome to Amplify Your Mindset with Ricky Kalmon. Motivational speaker, mindset expert, and celebrity hypnotist Ricky Kalmon has amazed audiences around the world. Kalmon empowers his audience with simple but powerful techniques to boost confidence and belief toward their goals and to exceed their own personal and professional expectations. Each episode features business leaders, motivators, and incredible individuals who share how mindset has contributed to their success. Put awareness and action into your life with the confidence that you'll succeed at the things you want to make happen. Here is Ricky Kalmon.
Hi, this is Ricky Kalmon, and welcome to another episode of Amplify Your Mindset. I am always excited to have a special guest, and today is Evan Hackel. Evan is the founder and CEO of Ingage Consulting and Tortal Training. He's also a keynote speaker, leadership consultant, trainer, profit builder, and much, much more. You know, I met Evan about 15 plus years ago, and Evan was a top executive with CCA Global Partners, where he led 4 international business divisions with more than 2,000 units that earned more than $5 billion in sales. Evan, I am so excited you're here. Welcome to the program.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here too, and thank you for having me as a guest. I'm looking forward to the conversation because every time I talk to you, I learn something. So
I'm fascinated with you as a leader, as running these businesses. Can you give us a little bit more background, our listeners, what you did, what was going on?
So the big thing for me, the sort of the game-changing thing for me, is when I realized the importance of vision and everyone in the organization being focused on vision and creating culture, including the culture of positiveness. And this all rooted from an experience I had in 2000 where our company bought a bankrupt franchise system, and that bankrupt franchise system, the franchisees were very unhappy, and the judge made it so that they could all leave in a year if they wanted to. So I had a year to get the organization going. And when I started doing town hall meetings and listening and getting a lot of involvement and information, I was blown away, not just because that it was great to get involvement, but the quality of ideas and how important it is to really involve everyone, because ultimately when you gather the ideas from the group and you involve everyone, you get a better outcome and you get greater support. And we grew it from 700 million to 2 billion in 4 years. And when I say we, I mean the whole company, all the franchisees, their employees, our employees. It was a real team effort. And this culture, and I'll talk about culture a lot because I really believe in it, of positiveness and shared vision is just it's a game changer in businesses, and it helps businesses hyper grow. So it's that, that's, I guess, one example of my background that I think it pertains to this conversation.
What's fascinating is that you didn't once mention product or service. How good the product was, how great the service was. It was something unique and different other than that.
Well, I'll tell you something. Most businesses are differentiated by their staff and their people. And yes, we had great product. Yes, we had great service. But we had better service because we had alignment. We had passion. We probably had better product because suppliers liked working with us because we supported them, and that they got and understood, the result. And, in the case of this company, which is a flooring company called Flooring America, the quality of installation results in less returns to suppliers, less installation problems, so, the cycle of success of, everyone working together, is impactful. So, if you look at any research, you look at Gallup's employee research, everything really starts and ends with your company staff, because if you want great customer service, they have to have a great employee experience. And I see culture all the time. I'm working with a new client right now, and I'll tell you something, they have such a low turnover rate because everyone's aligned with their passions. Not something I did, something, they hired me and I found. And normally I don't find it. I ask a simple question when I interview people, when I do consulting work, which is, what's the vision of the company? And normally people go, make money, don't know. And then when people, are able to really speak with clarity, it's just really powerful. And what's his name? Peter Drucker says, culture eats strategy for lunch. And I totally believe it. And I think, culture, and I'll add to that, a culture of positivity is huge, and having the right mind frame is huge. And if I could add to all of the listeners at the moment, I've engaged Ricky, 15, 20 times. And many of those times I engaged him as a motivational speaker because he knows how to create positive mindset within your company, within your organization. He knows how you think impacts how you do. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. And Ricky is masterful at that message.
Thanks.
So I'm giving you a free plug.
There you go. And we're not even done yet. We just started. One of the things that I find fascinating is, and I'm sure you come across this, but I'm also curious, before we go into what you do now, going back to the corporate sector. So even when I speak, I still have C-suite executives come up to me and say, listen, we totally get what you're saying, but we always have these one or two people that don't understand the importance of valuing the individual, the training, the mindset, the motivation. They're a numbers person, or they're not an outside thinker of how important it is to keep people motivated, to be a great listener, and everything you just said in creating a better culture. What kind of challenges did you have with people that didn't want to, I hate to use this word, but change or be open to the philosophies that you were trying to instill?
Well, you start in the hiring process. And, I look at positivity on a scale of, 1 to 10. And if they're not a 10, we just don't hire. And I look at coachability as sort of the next thing. Are they willing to learn? Have they demonstrated that willing to learn, which you can get out of interviewing? The more difficult question is the one you're really bringing up, which is somebody that already exists who has negativity sort of built into them.
Right, and they're embedded. They're in part of the company. And what do you do?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I do. Is sit down and we talk about it, and I just indicate to them that this is the culture we have in this company, and we won't accept anything less than that. And we make it very, very, very clear. And if a person isn't able to change, the person just isn't with us. Mm-hmm. In fact, on every job description I have, in addition to the, hey, here are the functional things we do, we have, here are the characteristics that we're looking for. And one of those characteristics is positive attitude and positive energy. And so to give you an example, I took over a company about 5 years ago, and great company. And the first thing I had everyone do is read The Energy Bus by John Gordon. It's a fantastic book on positivity, and discuss it and discuss with everyone up front. No one did not know my opinion on the importance of positivity. By the way, positivity isn't being a yes person. It's just about how you go about and how you do everything. And, you have to have a culture where there is acknowledgement of success, and that people that work there see and are caught doing things right, and that people don't look at not knowing something as a weakness, but as an opportunity for coaching. And, it makes all the difference in the world. It is such an important thing. And I don't care who the person is. I don't care how much they sell. I don't care what they do. I'll give them some time. But if ultimately they are not coachable, ultimately they're not willing to make a change, the company has to move on, because it's not fair. And this is the thing that was very difficult for me, because I'm an ardent believer in loyalty. I don't like firing people. I believe that I might change jobs, I might train, But, if I've made a decision, I made a commitment. That's not to say, though, I don't fire people. Because ultimately, if it's the wrong person, it hurts everyone else in the organization. It drags down the whole team. So I'm not, I believe you never fire someone in surprise, meaning they're surprised. Oh, I had no idea.
Right.
No one ever should be terminated in surprise. But, there are certain minimum standards and things that, literally, these are things that we will not accept or tolerate in our organization. And attitude is huge. Not knowing and not following or believing the company's vision and values are those type of things that are non-negotiables.
One of the things the question that comes up a lot in leadership and executive teams, you've got individuals that just start out with a company and they're highly, energetic. They're eager to learn. They're ready to go. They're young and just have this incredible enthusiastic drive to be successful. And then you've got this middle ground where people are doing very well and they've broken their expectations. And then you've got people that get to a level and they just don't think they can get any higher. And they make a great living. I mean, they're doing amazing numbers. However, they just don't buy into the fact that things can change and they become very comfortable. Have you found that back in the corporate world and did that create a negative, if you will, domino effect of people not wanting to try harder? That type of example seems to come up a lot these days, and when I talk to executives, what kind of was that challenging for you? Did something like that ever come up?
Comes up all the time. I call it coasting. It actually happens a lot in franchising, where a franchisee is at a stage where they're happy with the income they're making, and they don't want to push the envelope to grow their business. And then the franchisor, they earn their money based on growth and increased royalty. So the franchisor has an underperforming territory, but the franchisee is making enough money and they're comfortable. There's the old saying, you don't want to risk good for great. You also find that in the world of employees where somebody, is just at that point where they're comfortable. And I think it's the role of management to constantly be challenging people to, I like the word level up, to improve. So like at my company, every employee has a $2,000 a year budget for training on any training that they believe will help them in their work. So if they want to go to a conference, they don't have to ask, they can just go do it. If they want to go to some kind of training course, they want to get a certification, whatever it is, they don't have to ask. They can just go. And I do that because I want people leveling up. I want people, the green and growing, ripe and rotting. And if someone's, so let's just say someone's coasting, but they have a really good attitude and they're not looking, they're a great team player, but they're not looking to get promoted and they're really good at their job, but they're just happy where they are. I'm not so concerned about that because, companies need performers. So if they're a high performer coasting and they're not looking to be promoted and I've got other people that want to be promoted, that can work. What won't work is a coaster who begrudgingly comes in every day, isn't happy, isn't, acknowledging others, is just like collecting a paycheck.
Right.
And that's just totally unacceptable.
And you get too comfortable and don't stay with the culture. I mean, literally, they don't want to grow with the culture. They're just comfortable where they are and figure why fix it if it's not broken.
That's exactly right. And here's the thing. Every action you have sends a message to the entire team. And if you accept people that don't get the culture, don't support the culture within your organization, that tells the team that every time you talk about culture, it's BS. But when you live the culture, and when management lives the culture and the team lives the culture, it's inspiring. And so a lot of times managers sit back and say, the guy does an okay job. Okay, he's got a bad attitude. I don't want to go to the trouble of replacing him. And it's, it's between kind of me and him. And they don't get the ripple effect. The same thing is true in franchising. A franchisee thinks, you know what, if I don't want to grow, what do I care? I'm not hurting anybody.
Right.
They're hurting the whole system though, because they're not marketing as much. They're not supporting the brand as much. They're not helping their neighbors. They're I'll use the word, taking from the system rather than contributing to the system.
Absolutely. Devaluing the brand.
Yeah, exactly right.
So again, I've always been fascinated with your leadership because it wasn't just about the product, which is so important. It wasn't just about the service, which is so important, as we've been talking about the culture, the individual, the importance of valuing and investing in your people. And that's a training that, you can't stock that. You can't look at that as an inventory. You look at it, the investment of people itself. And now that you're on the other side of things and you're in training and you're in speaking and you are motivating, what was that transition for you? And let's go into more about Ingage Consulting and Tortal Training.
Well, this is kind of an interesting thing. I don't know if it applies to many people, but when I turned 50, I had met a gentleman who wrote a book called The Portfolio Lifestyle. And what it basically said is that, the traditional role is that people stay in the same company and work there forever and ever. And that there comes a time in life where maybe you want to do different things. And I looked at myself and what, my gifts are and what things I can do and accomplish. And I essentially said, I've done a lot, I've contributed a lot in my current role of what I'm doing. And that wouldn't it be nice to change my life where I could still contribute at a high level. In fact, I would argue I'm contributing more than I ever did, even though, where I worked, there were 30,000 employees within the system that I, had impact with. So I created Portfolio Life where I started consulting, I started angel investing, and the idea is not to take operational leads, but to contribute. And then, from that was a natural extension of public speaking. And I'm sure because you're a public speaker, you get this, when you're speaking in front of hundreds or thousands of people, you can have a massive impact, not just on the lives of the people you're speaking to, but all the people they work with, their families, et cetera.
Right.
And so that, sort of naturally led there. And then I had this huge passion for training because in my business world experience, I find it goes hand in hand. So, it's sort of like, if let's just say I went to you, Ricky, and I pumped you up and I said, Ricky, you're going to be the greatest doctor ever in the world, and you get excited and blah, blah, blah. And I say, okay, this patient needs a heart transfer, go for it. And, I don't care how positive you are. I don't care how much you get the vision of our business of saving people's lives. You can't change, you can't do, at least I don't think you can do a heart transfer.
No.
So skills are important and learning is important. And a lot of businesses, people sit back and they say to themselves, they just expect people to kind of know. They sort of assume everyone has the same values in terms of service and things of that nature. And it's just not true. So one of the big things at CCA Global Partners was training. And there was just huge correlations between training and increased productivity, increased profitability, increased customer service, and increased employee retention. These are all good things. So I had an opportunity to invest with a partner in Tortal Training, and Tortal Training, today is an amazing organization. We make effective training easy. That is our purpose, and we are all about really listening, understanding. We've created new processes working with our clients. From when I got there, we used to go and sell training. We, have a learning management system. We build custom courses. We go to people, hey, what do you want? And, a lot of our clients honestly didn't even know what they wanted. So we'd quickly try to help them figure out what they wanted and sell it to them. And now we go in and actually, before we do anything, because one of our values is being results focused, we actually do a thing called the rapid curriculum design, where we bring in stakeholders, people that are actually in the field that are going to be using the training, and we work through a whole planning cycle on how they can be effective and what things they need and what matters. And what we find is that ultimately we produce much better training. We don't produce training on things that don't need to be trained, but we do focus on the things that do need to be trained. And our whole culture of a company is about creating effective solutions and doing it easily, and us helping our clients so it's not difficult for them, but ultimately moving the needle. And I would say our company before that, we moved the needle. We just didn't move the needle in a massive way. So that buying the training company just fit with my personal core values of what I wanted to do. And I enjoy the company greatly, and I am the CEO, but my partner Cordell Riley is the president, and he really day-to-day runs the company. And that gives me still the freedom to do things I love doing, which is public speaking and the consulting work I do. So, I really have worked on, life balance and being able to focus on the things that I enjoy doing. And I do think one of my principles is everybody should be doing what they're best at. And people spending a lot of time figuring out how to be good at things they aren't good at, all it does is frustrate them. So I position myself really to focus on what I'm best at and have a lot of control of my life, can spend tons of time with my kids. I can go skiing, and I can coordinate my life so that I have a great life balance. So I would say I'm sharing this with everyone, but to some degree, I was in a lucky position because I could afford to do that. I'm, as you know, very happy and very blessed person.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're always a motivating person. I mean, I think I always see you smiling, and you're a great listener too. I mean, you're a great speaker, but you're always smiling when I've seen you in person, and even when we do these video chats, sometimes always a smile on your face. Which then leads me to my question for you: as a speaker, as a trainer, as an executive, as a leader, you are constantly putting out that energy to motivate other people. And I know that you are big in self-help. I know that you are big in positive thinking. But when it comes down to challenges and doubt and frustrations in your own life, if you wouldn't mind sharing something, what does Evan do when Evan gets off track? What is your go-to thing when you acknowledge and go, okay, wait a minute, I'm not giving myself permission to change this? And when you see that, you connect with the emotional awareness that something's got to change because it's holding you back. What do you do?
This is an amazingly good question, because this is, to me, one of the most important things. There are times you find yourself out of sync, that you started a conversation and didn't go the way you wanted to go. You're up speaking on the stage and you, for whatever reason, realize you're not connecting deeply with the audience. And you have to be able to shift quickly. You can't just shift. You can't take 20 minutes to shift. And I'm not a big believer in pity parties. And a lot of people I know, I think people are. What happens, I think, is you sort of develop a habit of self-pity, and I don't believe it. But if everyone can kind of visualize right now, on my arm I have a watch. And this watch is a very special watch. I'm actually literally taking it off to look at the watch as I'm talking to you. When I was 10, my grandfather passed away. That was, to give people a feeling of my age, 1969. And he left me his watch in his will. And no money. Money would have been nice, but no money. I didn't want money. Just joking. But it was just nice that he left me this watch. And my father looks at me, because it's an Omega watch and a really nice watch, and he says, son, I think, that watch is too nice for a 10-year-old. How about I wear it until you're ready? And I said, that's cool. And when I was 24, I went to my father and I said, I think I'm ready now for the watch. And he says, I don't think you are. And I asked him again at 30, 35, 40. And finally at 45, he said yes. And then he let me wear the watch. And then when my father turned 80, I said to him, Dad, how about you wear the watch? And when you pass, I'll take the watch back again. And so this watch for me is an anchor. And it's an anchor for love. And it's an anchor for being in sync. Because the one thing we all share in the world is being in sync. And so I have anchored this watch to reconnect me with the world. So whenever I feel the way you feel, I either look at the watch or I touch the watch, and I instantly shift. I instantly get out of that feeling. And I'm sure, Ricky, because I've heard you speak, that this is, sort of some of the type of things that you talk about, but is, having that ability to make that shift.
Absolutely.
And, I love this watch, and it has a story. I also have another watch, which is a Mickey Mouse watch I've had for years. And I sometimes wear that watch.
I've seen you wear that watch. I have actually seen you wear that watch, yes.
Yeah. It's interesting. I bought the watch, and one of the blessings of being old, now it's an antique. Yeah. But the Mickey Mouse watch also reminds me the commonality is being in sync. Yeah. The Mickey Mouse watch reminds me to be carefree and joyous and fun and not take myself too seriously. So both watches, I alternate. I go through periods, I guess, where I need one watch more than the other. But that's how I do it. It is literally, I can transform myself in seconds by looking at my watch or touching my watch. I'm not telling everyone to run out and buy a watch. Everyone has to have their thing. But that thing has to have meaning, and you have to practice it. It's not, I didn't build this anchor by just saying, oh, I'm going to do this. I built this anchor by touching and feeling my watch hundreds of times, putting that thought in there with my watch so that when I need my watch, I can do that. Right. And, what do you do?
That's funny you said, as you're talking about this, I use examples exactly like this in my program, and I've used it in my own everyday life. And I want to reassure and remind everybody out there listening to this, it doesn't make a difference whether you're a sales individual just starting out or if you're a corporate executive that runs a billion-dollar company. The fact that you just shared that story, and I'm sure that you've not only done that on stage as a speaker to change your perspective, but I bet you, and please tell me if I'm wrong, you've done it just sitting at your desk when trying to write an email and becoming frustrated and trying to get the right words out.
Absolutely.
And that's important. I think that's what this episode's about is again, or these shows, about creating different things of mindset to help us prospectively change the way we think, so it helps us change the world that we live in right now. So when you said work-life balance, it's about the now. How do you proactively put this to action and get some value out of this message? And when you ask me, what do? It's funny that I have very similar, if you will, tokens in my office. Same thing with my grandparents. Didn't have money, but I took certain little momentums, and they are literally in my office. And I'm not a big collector of things. I've got one or two things that literally, if I look at those items, boom, flashbacks, memories, feelings, emotions come into play, and it just helps me appreciate, helps me change my perspective, and I purposely put them on my shelf so I have to look at them sitting at my desk. So again, it's ironic. I've never heard you share that story before. I did know about the Mickey Mouse. I think I saw that many years ago. But it's that common little thing. It's how we understand how that brain works. And will we ever really understand it? No. But when we become emotionally connected to it and realize the power that it has, and I know this sounds so simple sometimes, and people go, it can't be that simple. But it is. It truly is. I mean, if you believe in your business, you have a great product, you have a great service, your mind has to think that too. And we're human. I mean, we're human beings. We are not machines. We are not perfectly programmed. How often do you update that software to make sure that it's riding in the right direction? And that's the importance. And that story right there, what you just shared, I think is a very valuable asset to people listening. And if they don't have something as an anchor like that, I think they should go out and find something. Like you said, you don't have to go buy a watch, but it doesn't have to be, it could be the smallest little thing, but it can make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, look, it could be how you touch your hair. It can be a thought, literally a thought.
Right.
But on this note, I had a person who's more of a friend than a client who was having trouble with their business, and so I said, send me all your stuff, and I read it, talked to a few people in their staff, and for the last 3 years, their business has been dropping by like 20% a year. And the person wanted to know why. And I said, I know exactly why your business has dropped. And he goes, what happened? They said, that's when you checked out. That's when you stopped caring.
Yep.
And I said, what happened 3 years ago that made you do that? And he goes, like, wow. And he had a personal life issue, and that personal life issue made him sad, about his life, and took his eye off the ball, wasn't interacting with clients, was doing more of the back office stuff, started having, he never had before, having turnover, lower quality work, losing big clients. And then, after having this conversation, just said, I'm going to be different. And then all of a sudden, I sent him my book too. I'll give my book a little credit.
There you go.
He, I always tell people to read my book twice because, there's a lot to gain there. But he started having every day in the morning meetings with his entire staff, asking everyone to acknowledge someone in the company for something the day before they did to help them, and creating this culture of positiveness. And I talk in my book, and I talk in my speeches about 5-to-1 positive acknowledgement to constructive advice. And the reason I believe in this is that when you catch people doing things right, and they know how much you care, and they know how well you're doing, the few times that you have a suggestion or idea, they're really going to be listening. In fact, they're going to be looking forward to seeing you, because most of the time you're coming over to acknowledge them. I don't know how many of you have had, a person you work for that, the phone rings, oh my God, I can't believe that I've got to speak to this person. Your just heart pounds, and you're, I hate this. Or you get the email, and, and it just physically changes you when you get that, that call. And so if you can, as a manager of people, and I will just say this, because this is not about work. And I know it sounds like it's about work. It is literally about life. Every time you see someone, you want that person to be looking forward to you. Every time you talk to your kids, you want them looking forward to talking to you. If every time I got this really from my father. Every time I talked to my mother, I got a lecture about what I was doing wrong. And this is a funny one. My last lecture I got from my mother, she says, you're spending too much time on the computer and too much time on the phone at work. Son, if you didn't do that, you'd probably be a lot more productive. And I go, I don't know what I'd do at work if I'm not on my phone. My mother's from a different age. But my father, every time I talked to him, he was always positive. Always positive, always positive. So when my father called, you jumped and loved taking the call. So in life, when you're acknowledging people, and I acknowledge people all the time, and I just make it a literal habit. I go to restaurants, and you get all these receipts, and I write little notes to the waiter about how great everything is, and thank them for the experience. I'll thank them in person. I'm at the doctor's office. I'll thank the front desk clerk. I was talking to a client of mine, employee, and I do something very different when I work with clients. I interview their entire staff before I actually interview the the primary, the CEO, the C-suite. And I do that because I don't want to be biased. And this organization does great things. I mean, literally, what they do helps people in the world deal with grief in a big way. And so I'm talking to this person who's in charge of accounts payable. And this person who's in charge of accounts payable is like, all these people, they do such great things and, et cetera. And, I do the accounts payable and, it's kind of, it's just the accounts payable. And so, I love what the company does, but, sort of like demeaning what they do. And I go, would the company exist if no one did accounts payable? And the person goes, well, no. I said, so if the company doesn't exist, can all this great other work happen? If the company doesn't know? I said, so you're part of the team. So you're not the one actually on the front line doing the work, but without you, the work doesn't happen. So you have the right to feel good about what this company does because you're playing a part of this organization. And this woman had never, ever, ever put that together. Never saw that connection to
right.
what they do, to what the company does, and became very emotional. And, I believe, I'll know a little bit more in a while, but changed how she felt about her job. And, those are important things. And so when you live looking to acknowledge people, like I didn't have to say anything to this woman. I could have just kept typing my notes. But I am constantly looking to acknowledge people. I spend a lot of time, I love acknowledging people because it makes me feel good, it makes them feel good, and it makes the world a better place.
Well, you understand the importance of appreciation. I mean, that the word appreciation is it's fuel for the mindset. And look at the perspective you changed of that individual. That's pretty powerful.
I once went to my favorite Italian restaurant, it's a local restaurant, and you give tips and you do things. I went out, I bought a bunch of roses. I came in at closing, and in fact, the guy at the door said, oh, we're closed. I said, well, I'm not looking to eat. I'm just looking to thank people. So he let me in, and I gave every employee, including the dishwasher, a rose. And just say, you guys have all made my life so happy so many times. I just want to take a second and acknowledge you all.
It's pretty powerful.
And living in positiveness and living in acknowledgement, it always puts you in a positive mood. It always makes you happy. That's why I'm always smiling.
Let me give you a quick plug here, too. Evan mentioned his book, so I'm going to give him the official plug here. He's the author of Engaging Leadership. Now, that's Ingaging, Leadership, 21 Steps to Evaluate Your Business. Obviously available on Amazon. It is a great book. I have a copy because you sent it to me, but it is a great book. I highly recommend it for individuals that really want to grow their business. Please check that out. Evan, thank you for your time. Thank you for your friendship. This was definitely enlightening. Thanks for sharing these stories. And I look forward to having you on again.
My pleasure. Always fun talking with you.
Thanks, Evan.
You have been listening to Amplify Your Mindset with Ricky Kalmon. For more information on Ricky Kalmon's corporate and personal development programs, visit rickykalmon.com.